Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Greg DuCharme, joined by Mark Immelman for the round 2 recap of the 3M Open. And today we're on YouTube. So hello YouTube. And if you're not watching, make sure you jump on over there. Be sure to subscribe and watch us regularly over there. And by the way, Mark, I haven't told you this, but we may have some exclusive content coming over there next week. So if you are there, you'll get a chance to see Mark's COVID-friendly mask. But Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks, bro. It's been a while since I've been on here, but it's nice to be with you again. It's been a fun event to cover so far, I've got to be honest.
So what do you make so far? We got an interesting leaderboard. Okay, we have Richy Werenski, which if you heard last night, I'm going to harp on him pretty much all week as he was my sleeper. So and you weren't involved, so this is a little more friendly. That there's no ambushes tonight on that. But Richy's hanging around, which is great to see. Michael Thompson right there in second. We got Tony Finau and Matthew Wolff in the mix as well. What did you make of the golf course, and what did you make of our leaders today?
Well, the golf course is great, and typically it rewards bombers, and we've seen that obviously in last year with Matthew Wolff coming through and a few of the big hitters taking advantage. But, you look at the leaderboard right now on a receptive golf course, and it's a little eclectic, the leaderboard, really. I mean, Michael Thompson's not the longest guy in the world. Werenski isn't either. Finau can bomb, we know this. Taylor Gooch is sneaky long, and Zigzag Zang is not the longest. So it looks like it's just rewarding precise play. If you put the ball in, play off the tee, you're going to be able to attack these receptive greens. And the greens are gigantic. I mean, so it's easy to hit greens in regulation, but you've got to hit them to quadrants. So as a result, distance control, I think, with the irons is crucial. So it's a real interesting mix of players up on the leaderboard, and it's obviously folks that are playing well.
Now you look at a guy like Richy Werenski, and he's looking for his first win, and this is his 99th career start on the PGA Tour. And he has had some close calls, tied second at the 2018 Barbasol Championship, tied third at the Mayakoba Golf Classic in 2018. And the first event of this wraparound season, he was tied third at the Greenbrier. So he's a player who has popped up and gotten himself into contention a number of times. When you looked at his round from today, what did you see? And do you think that he has the makeup to contend going forward?
Well, hold on. Before we ask me, I need to ask you, what did you see in Richy Werenski to make him a sleeper for this week?
Well, this is the kind of week, as I just read off a couple of those pop-up events, right, where he plays really well and he contends. And when he sniffs the lead, he has a knack for getting in contention. And I don't think he's afraid of going out there and performing over the weekend. Now, this year so far, since the restart, he's made 4 straight cuts, and he's had a round that has held him back. He shot a 72, he shot a 74 in like that Saturday round where it moves him out of immediate contention. So I saw a player who was playing really well, who was having a round that kind of held him back. And when you have scores the way we've had scores, and he didn't play in the Memorial, so all the events before the Memorial, I mean, guys are going really low. And if you shoot 71, I mean, you're losing 30 spots. And all of a sudden, you can go from a top 10 to a 30th because of one round. And eventually, a guy who's gaining confidence like that is gonna start to play well.
Well, what I see probably wouldn't fly very well with our compatriots, both Kyle and Rick, because they're strokes gain ball striking junkies. But
oh yeah.
I've seen a guy here who's been solid throughout the bag, but he's allowed his putter to become the superstar. He's putting the ball in play off the tee. He's putting the ball in the right spots in the greens. Nothing really spectacular, but he's setting up his strength. And he's always been a sound putter, but this week he's got the greens dialed in a big way. I mean, the guy's made just a country mile worth of putts through 2 rounds. And so it looks to me like he's playing to his strengths, which obviously is for me something to look out for PGA Tour players, because the person who doesn't win very often, when they get themselves into contention, oftentimes they try and do things differently. But Richie's just confident enough with himself to say, okay, well, I'm a decent driver of the ball. I'm not going to blow you away with length. I'm a decent iron player, but I'm not Colin Morikawa or Tiger Woods. But I'm just going to piece that stuff together to give my putter a chance. And he has been like a banshee on the greens, man.
Yeah, it's been really great to see. Another player, Mark, who's been also great on the greens is Michael Thompson, and he is second in strokes gained on the greens. He's gained 4.5 shots putting, second, as I said, for the field. It's interesting. The top 3 players are, with the exception of Tony Finau. Yeah, I gotta look at that again. Earlier, I was looking. The top 3 players were the top 3 players in strokes gained putting as well, which, as Kyle and Rick would say, is a problem. When you look at Michael Thompson, are you seeing the same thing? Do you think it's a problem that he's putting so well? Does he have anything to worry about going forward, or is this sustainable?
No, he's a proven winner, and he's won. Run some tough venues. I think of the Honda Classic at PGA National, where you can't be a scrub from tee through green and still win over there because of holes like the bear trap and such. And you play in these cross winds, which we saw a little today of. But the thing about Thompson, I caught up with his golf swing instructor, Justin Parsons, who works down there in Sea Island. And he and Michael have just been working towards what Michael said his college coach used to say to him, which was just to play Michael Thompson golf. Because when he was in college, you hit the sliding fade, and sometimes it would overcut, but it would never go left. Then he worked with the guy for a while, and they neatened up his swing. They improved the angle of the shaft coming down and all this fancy stuff, and he hit the ball better. But that didn't correlate to better scores. So now he's just got back to what he does well, and what he does well is putt. And he actually acknowledged this in some post-round comments after the first round. So he's doing Michael Thompson, and if you're true to yourself, you're going to be successful. Now, is that necessarily a win? Who knows? But you're not going to win if you don't get yourself into contention, and he's doing all the right things right now.
It is, you mentioned how difficult it is to win on the PGA Tour, and it's especially difficult to keep up putting like this. I mean, the putts that these 2 players have made, Michael Thompson and Richy Werenski, have been fantastic, as you said. So while they're great putters, this is where I kind of I toe the line between what Kyle and Rick say, what they kind of hang on to, and more along the lines of what you say. I kind of find myself on the fence because you have a Richy Werenski and a Michael Thompson who their fingerprint as a player is they putt really well. So why would you hold that against them when they are putting really well and use that as a prediction of why they're not going to play well tomorrow? There's part of it that doesn't make sense. The other thing that I see with these players is it's not like, especially in the case of Michael Thompson, it's not like he's leaning only on the putter. He's putting great. That's why he's tied for the lead. But, I mean, he's hit 32 of 36 greens for the week, right? He's gained he's gained over 5 shots putting. 5 strokes gained on 5.6 approaching the green. So he's hitting the ball really well, too. And I think that's going to be a big advantage.
To that, if I might just real fast.
Yeah.
Receptive greens will kind of mitigate ball striking a little. If you get really firm, fast conditions like we saw at the Memorial, the ball strikers will come to the fore. You saw that with Jon Rahm. But in a place where the greens are receptive and the ball sort of sticks where it lands, you don't have to strike the ball that flush to really grab purchase on the thing and have it stop close to your distance. So it to me, oftentimes receptive conditions, everyone talks about it being a birdie fest. I more see it leveling the playing field a little bit more. You also don't have to be the expert chipper, because the expert chipper is able to spin the ball, grip the ball, flight the ball, all this sort of stuff. But on receptive greens, you can say, okay, what's going to dig in and then release. So, the skill of it isn't taken away, but it certainly does even the playing field some. So conditions like this, if they do get some more rain, I think will kind of even the playing field.
Yeah, it evens it out for the guys that are playing really well. Like it doesn't necessarily, there's still a skill set required. You still see guys shooting, you see Dustin Johnson shoot 78, right? And then maybe there's something wrong with an injury there. But point being, there's still skill required, and there's a big difference in scores from players who are playing well and players who are not. But I definitely see your point there. But Mark, another player who is playing really well, who I got to get your take on, is Tony Finau. And Tony Finau is a player I wasn't overly high on this week, simply because of the emotion of last weekend. And last weekend at the Memorial was not an easy one to watch, especially if you're a Tony Finau fan. This week, leading the field in strokes gained approach the green, leading the field strokes gained tee to green. As Jacob has here on the rundown, he's hitting nearly 90% of his greens. So it's extremely impressive. From your point of view, what are you seeing from Tony Finau? Is this the week that he breaks through?
Well, we're 36 holes in, but right now, if I was picking someone, I would say if you stay in front of Tony Finau, you're likely to lift the trophy. And the thing that jumps out to me is is one, the control that he's playing with, and two, how, every great professional to me can put a hiccup behind them pretty fast and keep looking forward. Tiger Woods was a master at staying forward. He never looked behind very much. And Finau, obviously, has gotten over the misstep last weekend. But if you look at the iron striking numbers, the key to this place is to keep the ball out of the water, drive it long if you can, and then hit the ball to these quadrants on the greens. And through 2 rounds, proximity-wise, he's averaging like 22 feet, which is unheard of. I mean, this is insanity. Most folks will be like, well, that's not very good. The average on a PGA Tour is somewhere in the 30-foot range, 32 feet or so on average.
Overall proximity may even be higher than that.
So
Yeah.
I mean, here's a guy who's hit 32 of 36 greens. He's putting from inside 25 feet every single time. So he's stacking the odds in his favor. And the putting stroke looks like it can stand the test of pressure. He's got this method he's went to with the clubs that are locked in the wrist a bit. That left wrist is sort of deviated a bit to just stabilize things. And the stroke looks smooth. The golf swing looks smooth. I mean, he's got Coach Boyd Summers on the bag, and it looks – I made the point this morning to someone that he obviously – this is Finau, of course – has identified that something's not right. And he's been in contention this much and hasn't won more. And when the player starts thinking like that, if they've exhausted all of the things that they can take care of, golf swing wise, putting wise, physical stuff, mental stuff, then they start to look at the folks around them. They're like, and it goes caddy, coach, agent, wife, sort of how the thing goes a little bit. I did the last one, but sometimes you see this happen. And he got rid of Greg Bodine, his long-term caddy. So this tells me that Finau's looking around. And now his Coach Boyd isn't going to be on the bag full-time, but there must be an itch that he's trying to scratch right now.
Yeah, well, you talk about like other sports, right?
Yeah.
Players in other sports or teams in other sports, owners, they have a lot of places they can look. When the team isn't winning, they can, let's take football, for example, they can fire the quarterback. Right? They can fire the offensive or defensive coordinator. They can fire the head coach. In the game of golf, as a player, you're kind of limited in who you can, you're not going to fire yourself. You certainly can't get rid of yourself. So you're kind of looking at your coach or your caddy. And to get a fresh voice in there, I mean, he's clearly happy with his game. He's happy with the place that he's put himself in. And there's some sort of disconnect when he gets to when he gets himself in contention close to the lead. And sometimes a fresh voice is all you need. So, it's nothing against his caddy necessarily. Just change can be good sometimes.
I'm a recovering PGA Tour golf instructor.
Yeah.
I've long called it the carousel that is the PGA Tour, because you hear this morning and you've gone this afternoon, because everyone's looking around and it's in again, out again, in again, out again. And you see players will fire a coach and then end up back with a coach. And it's just this moving around because they're looking for that fresh voice that you reference.
Yeah, they're just, you sometimes need to find a fresh edge. So I got to ask you, I'm going to just ask the question. Is this the week for Tony Finau, or are you not quite sure?
Everything is pointing in that direction. Just the game looks sound, but for me, the level of comfortability looks sound. And unlike last week where the conditions were so hard that you could hit a decent shot that was on the edge, that lips out and you got 5 feet coming back, or you can hit a ball in the rough and hit a flyer over the green, and all of a sudden that turns disastrous. Where here, if you keep the ball out of the water, you can just sort of paper cut yourself a little bit, make the odd bogey. But Finau's got the guns to get to all the par 5s and 2. And there's nothing really that carries a big fright factor about it around this golf course. So from that point of view, I do really like his chances right now.
On William Hill, he is plus 250. I mean, these are, Vegas definitely calling him the favorite to win. And I think if you look at the statistical breakdown, he probably has the one you're the most comfortable with. He's hitting the ball the best of anybody near the lead. So it's definitely, I mean, I agree with you, Mark. All signs point to him. And since I have some, Richy Werenski investments, I think Tony Finau would be my hedge for sure. But let's move on to a player who is almost in a strange way, kind of the forgotten guy here. And he's the defending champ, Matthew Wolff. His play has been incredibly impressive to me so far. As I look, just one bogey, back in the first round, and it was on his second hole of the day, and he hasn't made a bogey since. He's playing some beautiful golf, but he's another one of those guys that's really getting the job done on the greens. He's third in strokes gained putting for the week, 12th approaching the green, and 70th off the tee, which is typically his strength. So I find that a little interesting. What do you make of Matthew Wolff and his first ever title defense?
Hey, horses for courses. I mean, this is a thing on the tour. The one thing you'll hear me saying all of the time, and it probably becomes nauseating, but if a guy gets to a course where the place fits his eye, the game will probably show its score-wise. And then if you get back to a place where you've had success, it also brings that sense of comfort about it. Because the big thing always in an element that you can't necessarily measure is just the unease about the future. Because that causes doubt, and doubt for me wrecks a golf swing as badly as anything. So if you come to a place where you've had success, the doubt is gone. You know the lines off the tee. You know the speeds and the greens. You can get to a place like the 18th where you've made a putt to win. That does worlds for what you feel like deep down inside. Those immeasurables, And so,
Yeah.
so for Wolff, who's been playing okay coming in here, I mean, he was runner-up in Detroit, played nicely last week under difficult conditions at the Memorial. I think he's just freewheeling. And if you get a guy free swinging and freewheeling, especially if you a talent like him, I mean, good scores are almost inevitable.
I'm extremely impressed with him. And I got a couple of stats here for you. He would be, with a win this week, the second I guess he'd be the second youngest two-time winner on the PGA Tour, and that's it. He is the youngest winner since Tiger, and he would also be the youngest to win the same PGA Tour event in back-to-back years since, you'll like this, Mark, John McDermott at the 1911 and 1912 U.S. Open. So this would definitely be a rather impressive feat.
Johnny McDermott, 2 U.S. Opens in a row. That's no mean feat.
Yeah, when he was like 21 years old. So quite impressive. Now, a couple other players this week that did not have the same success as the players we just mentioned, including Brooks Koepka. We got some news from Tiger Woods that we're not extremely happy about, and we're gonna put some names out there of guys that we think are gonna have a great third round. We're gonna get to all of that, but first we got to take a break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. Okay, Mark, we've talked a little bit about some of the players at the top of the leaderboard, but unfortunately, there are a couple of players who are not necessarily in the best form, headlined by Brooks Koepka. And Brooks Koepka, who seems to be struggling with a little bit of a knee injury, he misses the cut by one. But as another one of producer Jacob's statistics here, third in the field in strokes gained off the tee and ninth tee to green. What did you see? What did you see from him? And did you think that the trouble was on the greens, or do you think these statistics may be misleading us?
If you're watching the YouTube, you'll see me waving my hands around the place.
Yeah.
Now, this is when I kind of wish the other two guys would be here, because this is a proof that driving the ball well off the tee is not the be-all and end-all. It's going to help you to shoot lower, but it doesn't guarantee anything. And golf is about constructing a score. Golf is about assembling around a golf. Golf is about kind of, playing the hot hand when it's there and playing defense and smarts when it's not going on. And it's this dance with form and confidence and shot selection and all this kind of thing. And in the end, you may as well sign checks with your putter. That's how it works, okay? Yes, if you drive it, typically I've always said the best ball striker in the field who putts the best is the guy who's going to probably win. And a putter it fixes a number of great ills, especially some errant ball striking, but you have to putt it to shoot low and to make birdies, especially at a place like this where it looks like 20 under or more is probably it's what it's going to take. And for Brooks, I'm unconvinced right now. Yeah, the numbers were better, but I sort of saw a guy who set up to hit a few fades and pulled them. And then I saw a guy who the distance control on wedges was
off.
substandard, to say the best, to say the least. And that's kind of how you make hay if you're a bomber. And if so, you can't control the driver; it's not one directional, and then you're not hitting wedges right. You're going to battle, and then everyone will point to the putter statistically. And look, I saw him missing putts, and I know the feeling you do too of when you start missing 4 and 5 footers. That hole looks like it's the size of a thimble, okay, and that flows through the rest of the game. So I'm just not sure right now. I really am. It didn't look awfully convincing to me, to be honest.
Yeah, I certainly have questions. And, some of them are, okay, we have a player who's been battling an injury for a very long time. It's a nagging injury that just, it seems to continue to, it seems that he struggles when he's walking on hills. It seems to get aggravated on hilly golf courses. There's one golf course that Brooks at the beginning of the year was probably a favorite to win. That's extremely hilly, and we're headed there in November. So I definitely have some concerns from that standpoint. And the other concerning thing is if it's injury, that's one thing. But now we have an injury, so that's making our game suffer. But is that what's going to make the putting stroke suffer? Where are we? Is it? Do you think, Mark? I'm asking. Do you think he has to get is it taking away his practice time because of a knee injury? Is he spending too much time rehabbing it so he can't practice putting? Is that maybe where the putting woes come from?
Well, he said as much that he's had his trainer out with him and they're working on it, and the knee felt better after Sunday. And you're right, Muirfield Village was a big walk and a difficult walk. I think we'll get the real barometer on where Koepka's game is after next week. A place in TPC Southwind in Memphis where it's been a great place for him. The golf course, his eye, he plays well there. He's part of the greens well. He's had success. He's won.
Last year.
Yeah, he's the defending champion, exactly. So I think that'll be when I certainly, because I said it looked unconvincing, but I don't know what he's feeling inside. I haven't got to ask him anything. But I know, having called him a few times in Memphis, that this place for him is like putting on an old shoe. And if he gets there and he plays badly, I think that'll answer a bunch of questions for us.
Well, unfortunately, we are not going to be able to answer questions about another individual who we have probably more questions about than anybody else, and it's Tiger Woods. And Tiger has announced that he will not be playing in the WGC FedEx St. Jude Invitational next week in Memphis. What do you think this makes of his chances at the PGA? Do you think he needs this rep? Do you think there's a chance that he would ever miss the PGA even? I know that may sound crazy, but what do you think this means?
Who knows? I mean, beginning of the pandemic, I was prophesying that Tiger was going to come back in one of the first few events. Then he was sailing up the coastline and everyone thought that RBC was going to be a thing, and it never happened. So, I'm also unsure with Tiger, but I do find it curious that he's not playing in Memphis. Now, I've thought about this and actually spoke to Nick Faldo because we looked at the forecast, or the weather right now in San Francisco was like in the mid 60s, and it's a damp cold there. And for someone with an ailing back, that's not a happy spot to be. So I'm wondering if this is just a little extra rest, just practice at home where he's comfortable and go into San Francisco for the PGA as fresh as he could be. But all that being said, Memphis is going to be hot as Hades. So if you've got a tight back, it's the best place to go and play because it'll keep you loose. So I couldn't begin to offer anything concrete on the decision making. It doesn't make any sense to me, given that from when we've come back to the first major championship, he's got 4 rounds under pressure played, just 4.
Yeah, and it makes a big deal. And when we get into golf tournaments, I don't know if this is going to be a golf tournament that's like the Zozo, for instance, right? The Zozo, I don't think that golf course is a major championship type golf course. So there's definitely some concerns that I have, and I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what he's able to do. So go ahead.
I was there for the media day for the PGA at Harding Park right after Pebble Beach, which was early in the year. And that rough there was punitive then. That stuff is going to be like ankle high, wet, dense. It's going to be challenging. And that place, again, in the cold, golf ball won't be traveling real hard. So it's going to really lend itself to someone who can bust it off the tee and hit it straight. The Poa greens, he's had success in that stuff there. But it's going to be a test that people won't be used to seeing at this time of the year, because ordinarily this time of the year we're on the East Coast somewhere playing on either champion Bermuda greens or bent somewhere, not Poa in cool, moist conditions.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point. So very interested to see what happens. Obviously, hoping that that this is the right decision, and I trust him. I trust that he knows how to get prepared. But we'll see what happens. So it wasn't great at the Memorial. Hopefully, it turns out better in San Francisco. All right, Mark. Let's get to some plays and fades for the weekend. Is there anyone you're looking at out there this week so far who's maybe you think is going to have a better Saturday than they did Friday?
You know what? I've always loved Cameron Davis's game.
Ooh, yeah.
Won Australian Open as a young man, came in through the Corn Ferry Tour, so he's galvanized what he does in a place where you've got to shoot low. Let's be honest, the Corn Ferry Tour, you've got to shoot more than 16, 17 under every week if you want to contend. So I'm looking at a guy here who shot 77 and 76, and he's sort of in that mindset of going low, and he's an impressive guy. He's powerful. So the game sort of fits, and I'm keen to see how he moves over the weekend. But I would say if I was going to have a bit of a flutter, I'd put a little something on Cameron Davis.
Yeah, and I the guy that I'm looking at here is Ryan Moore. Ryan Moore is a guy we haven't seen a lot of lately. We haven't seen him contend a lot lately. He shot 1 under par today, which I mean, for the week, he's fourth in strokes gained approach the green, which I think is going to be very important. And he's still positive on the greens, but he's only gained 1.6 strokes on the greens. He's 44th in the field. I think he can improve on that tomorrow. And is a player with, when you get into those receptive conditions and it gets a little softer, his disadvantage in the distance is almost mitigated because the ball's going to stop on the greens a little bit sooner. So he's definitely a player that I'm looking at. And I mean, we usually don't go as high as we do, but like Tony Finau's a guy I'm definitely riding high on. So what are your thoughts?
Look, I like Finau. I believe that if you're in front of him, you're going to contend. But you got to consider Matthew Wolff too.
Yeah.
The way he's playing, he's obviously confident. He's got that swagger about him, and the birdie production is off the charts, and he's putting well. And we know he can drive it, and I love the way he hits wedges. So I'm basically saying that this guy can do it all, and he's at a place where he's won. So I've got my eye on Wolff over the weekend as well.
Do you think you have any fades? Anybody, at least maybe not for the entire weekend, but maybe for tomorrow that you're thinking of fading for tomorrow?
You know what? I hadn't even considered that. Because I have a sense that even though they're in the last group, I feel like Thompson and Richy Werenski will hang around a little bit. I don't think they're going to go away. In terms of fading someone, I don't want to say this because I'm so excited to see a 45-year-old Bo Van Pelt who's battled injury in the book. Play well, have a hole in one on my hole, which was a thrill on Thursday. I'd love to see him continue, but right now, battling those injuries, 4 rounds is a long time, and he hasn't played 4 rounds. I think he's only made the cut like 4 times in 13 events played this year. So I don't want to say I'm fading Bo, but I'm looking out for that.
He was definitely the first guy on my list as well, and it's a little concerning. You haven't been there in a while, and all of a sudden you get into contention on the weekend, and things can happen a little quickly, even though you have a career that's been pretty successful. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens from that standpoint. Another guy that you may want to fade is Arjun Atwal. Arjun Atwal has gained a lot putting, and this is the model, right? Your favorite model. So he's gained 3.34 putting, and he's lost 2.21 tee to green. So he may be a guy that you fade. So
wait a second, I've just looked at the rundown. Me in the rundown, and I see I see Chris Baker. No, yeah, look, I'd be guessing if I gave you an answer over there. So I'll lay out.
I understand. Like, I mean, Chris Baker going to turn the putter around? I mean, he lost 2.59 strokes gained putting, but what's to say that that's going to change tomorrow? Like I don't know about Chris Baker's average, and so you don't want to look at guys that are putting bad and just say, oh well, they're going to play great tomorrow because they have to putt better. That's not necessarily true. So, I do think that a little bit of the eye test, a little bit of feel is important, but it is concerning, especially from the fade perspective, when you see a guy just go crazy like Arjun Atwal with the putter who doesn't really hit it very well. That can definitely be concerning.
He's won before on the PGA Tour.
It's true. It's true. And he could do it again. So I know, Mark, it's tough to get you to commit to a fade because you're around these guys, right? You know how good they are and understand it. And, you're right for it because they can all, like, they're really good players, every single one of them. So, but it'll be interesting to see. Mark, thank you so much for joining me. And I hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks, brother. Good to be with you guys again.
Yeah. All right. Enjoy the time with your family. Enjoy a nice glass of wine. Maybe have an extra one for me.
I'll do it.
That is Mark Immelman. You can find him on Twitter at Mark_Immelman. I'm Greg DuCharme. You can find me on Twitter at TheRealGFD. That's all we have for you today. Make sure you join us again tomorrow night after round 3. See you later.